So I'm going to talk about a start button with you guys today. And what a start button is a behavior that your dog shows you that lets you know that they're ready to do whatever it is that you need to do to them. And it relates to cooperative care. So, cooperative care being the idea that the dog has an understanding of what's going to happen and they want to be a part of it, right? They tell you, hey, I'm ready for this. We've trained this. I know what to expect. We're not forcing the dog to do anything. They have complete choice in the matter. And we're making the choice to do it really, really rewarding for them. And so what a start button does is it tells you when it's okay to proceed with whatever procedure you're doing, whether it's, looking at their ears or giving eye drops or doing nails or looking at teeth. Like, we want the dog to say, hey, I'm ready for this, versus us just going in and having to do it. And so Xana here is going to demonstrate what that looks like for you guys with a few of her start buttons. So I think Xana's favorite start button is her chin rest. And so that's something where if I stick my hand out and she puts her head in my hand, she knows that some sort of touching is going to happen. And so whether that's I want to look at her ears, I want to look at her eyes, I want to look at her teeth, she understands that when she has her face in my hand, some sort of touching is going to happen. And so if she comes off of that, like if I were to do that, I'm going to remove my hand and say, oh, I understand that you weren't ready quite yet. And she pretty immediately put her head back in my hand. And so that's something where I can say, okay, now she's ready for this touching that's happening, right? And so if I were to, do something that she really didn't like or felt like she wanted to stop, and didn't feel like she, needed to growl or do any of that behavior, because she can lift her head up and I'll stop. And so that gives them another communication tool without having to do a growl or a snap or something that we view as pretty scary and something that, isn't super appropriate for a dog to do. But if we give them this understanding of, okay, if I do this and you do that and then this happens, then they don't feel like they have to escalate into some of those behaviors, because they understand, oh, well, if I just remove myself from this situation, I don't have to participate anymore. I don't have to tell the human to back off, because I can back off and they will. Another one of Xana's start buttons is her roll to the side. So when I do nails, she knows what the nail clippers are, and she understands that when she tells me she's ready to do her nails, then I can go ahead and grab her foot. But it's something where I want her to offer the behavior that she knows how to do first before this happens. And usually we do this with a Dremel. So she's giving me her paw, right? And that's fine. What I'm looking for is she usually does a roll over on her side, just like that. And so then that means I can grab her foot and I can start messing with it. And if she gets up from this position, so if she, stands up or, rolls to the side where she's no longer all the way on her side, then that would tell me that she's, no longer comfortable. Maybe it was too long of a time for her to be down. But I'm going to reward in between each time, and I'm going to wait for her to offer that again. Then I can go ahead and go to this foot. We can do multiple feet. And so she got up, and then I'm going to go back. Girl. And so I'm having to pay pretty good attention to, what her body language is and what she's telling me, which is important for that relationship and trust that we've built, so that she doesn't feel like she ever has to, again, growl at me or snap at me or do any of those behaviors, because she knows that I'll stop if she gets up from this position. And you see how she's offering this every time. So after I reward, she goes right back to it. And so we can, continue to do this behavior, because she's continually offering that behavior that says, okay, I'm ready for you to do what you need to do. And I'm not cueing that behavior. I'm just waiting for her to offer it. You can also use like a stationary object or somewhere for your dog to orient to as a start button. So if they understand that, oh, if you put a towel down on the ground, or they have a specific grooming table, as soon as they get up on the grooming table, you can start the grooming. Usually I would still try to, you know, have that be a place of grooming, but add a start button into that. So whether it's a chin rest or, you know, the dog is looking at you and not the item, you know, it's kind of a little bit trial and error when you're figuring out what your dog's start buttons are, because it's not going to be the same for every dog. But you can watch for some sort of behavior, like when you have nail clippers out or you have ear cleaner out, or something that your dog does a little bit differently than just interact with you, and say, okay, maybe that's the start button, such as, you know, looking directly at you versus looking away or looking at the object, so that you can approach when the dog is looking at you. If they look at the object or look away, then we back off. That could be a start button that you start with your own dog and continue. And it's kind of about those repetitions of teaching them, okay, when you do this specific behavior, this consequence happens, right? If you give me your head in a chin rest, then I'm going to touch you in some way. Or if you roll over to your side, I'm going to, you know, touch your nails and clip your nails. So it's kind of, you know, a start button behavior can be anything. It could be the dog putting their head on the floor. It could be the dog, you know, sitting instead of standing. It could be the dog giving you their paw and taking their paw away. Like it can be a lot of different behaviors. And so if that's something that you want to figure out with your own dog, definitely reach out, and I would love to help you figure out what exactly that is.